Hi guys, we're here with my friend Ede Fox. She's going to tell us her carnivore story, and she's had a lot of success with keto and carnivore, and we're really excited to have her here today to share some of her knowledge with us. And so I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, Ede.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, like, what led you down this path to get started on carnivore and keto, and how did it all start?
Well, it's a long path indeed. Like many other carnivores, I came from the keto realm. I actually have been doing keto on and off since the late 90s. I think the Atkins book, the fourth iteration of the Atkins book came out in the late 90s. So I have been sort of doing a low carb thing on and off over the years. But I think it was about 2012 or 2010, I started gaining weight from a tough work situation. And by 2015, I found myself at my highest weight. So when it finally came time to do something about it, I decided to go keto. And it just worked fabulously for me. I ended up losing 80 pounds and, couldn't be happier. So from then, I'd always sort of been interested in the science around low carb, and I'd been part of forums over the years since, even since the early 2000s. So I continued to explore it and read the science and watch the presentations and any information I could find. I was like eagerly consuming it. So that was something that really helped me sort of stay focused, because in the early years, like, this was crazy. Why were we eating keto? So it was helpful to see a lot of information that made me feel confident in my decision and that I was doing something good for my health.
Yeah, it can be hard when your doctor or other family members are telling you you're crazy and stuff. And it's really important to find that community online. And was it mainly the weight, or did you have other challenges with your health?
Well, in retrospect, yeah, I had lots of other challenges with my health, but I never thought about those things in connection to diet and weight. So, I had eczema and allergies and asthma, and it was like, oh well, these are just things I have, but let me focus on how I can lose this weight. And then I actually went to a natural and all natural doctor. And I went and to deal with all of these issues. And I expected him to say, oh, you need to go vegan or vegetarian, and you need to be eating very natural. And he said, hey, you're allergic to corn and soy, so you should do the cave woman diet. This was even before the word paleo was out there. And he said, you should eat nothing that comes in a box or a bag, and only meat and vegetables. And I was like, wow, I was really not expecting you to say that. So, I started doing that, and that helped. Definitely keto helped with a lot of these issues, but I didn't see full resolution until, I started doing carnivore.
And what made you stop the veggies? And that's a big, heavy turn.
Yeah, that was, I think it's really been about 10 years of educating myself to finally do it. Because I actually came across zero carb back, I think it was in 2007. There was Charles Washington had this forum where he talked about his experience, and there were lots of people on it. And I was a member of that forum, and I listened, but it was really hard to wrap my head around this idea that vegetables might not be so great. And I, for a long time, I thought of myself as a very healthy person, and I made an effort to choose foods that provided, certain, nutrients and that were particularly healthy. So, I was eating kale because it was healthy. I was eating broccoli because it had this, macronutrient, and I was eating wild blueberries because I could get this other thing. And so to think that, maybe I didn't need to do all of that was, kind of crazy. So over the years, I'd heard Amber O'Hearn speak. And as I was telling you before, I had come across Dr. Georgia Ede's website a long time ago. And so reading this information, it was kind of like, wow. But I still couldn't quite, bring my head to do it. And I think in December of 2017, I, I had some health issues, and I came across a site that was talking about the ground beef and butter fast. So I decided to try to do it to get myself to raise my level of ketosis, and to, see if I can, lose a little bit more weight. And after like a day or two, I just felt like I could finally breathe again. I had air and oxygen, and now in retrospect, I know at the time I was extremely anemic, and I have endometriosis, and there were various things that I was losing a lot of blood, and so going into eating a lot of red meat like was transformative for me. But I also loved beef. I've always loved beef. And so once I started eating it and felt like I could, it was like, oh my God, why would I stop? So I intended to do it for 30 days. And this was right before World Carnivore Month started. So in January, I guess that started January 2018. So I kind of started in December. I kept going, and I kept saying, okay, I'm just experimenting. And, my mom's like, this crazy thing, I don't like this, and I'm like, I'm just experimenting. And now a year and a half later, it's kind of like, well.
So that was not this year, but the year before.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I started in October of 2018. So it's been 8 months for me. But yeah, my parents, actually my sister did it first, so my parents already thought she was crazy, so I didn't have to bear the brunt of it, I guess. But my grandma was here the other day. She was like, what are you doing? So it was crazy. Yeah, a lot of people don't get it. So you lost like 80 pounds with keto, and then more with carnivore, or how did that work?
Actually, I really haven't lost much with carnivore. I know that that's a common complaint. I noticed some body recomposition, so maybe I'm a little bit more muscular. When I was losing weight on keto, I did a lot of weightlifting, and I found that was transformative for my body. Every other time in life when I've lost any weight, it's like I might be a big me, and then I get a little smaller me, but my general shape doesn't change. But with the weightlifting, like my whole body really changed a lot. And so when I went carnivore, it was just kind of like everything just got a bit more muscular, but I didn't really lose any more weight. Now, most recently, I've decided to really make a concerted effort to take out dairy. And that has, again, brought a huge change that I wasn't expecting. So I guess it's been, I don't know, maybe it's been 2 months now since I took out dairy. And, and I was expecting maybe to see some weight loss, which I have seen. But more importantly, I don't have to use my asthma inhaler at all. So that was a problem that I had gotten some control of when I went on keto, but it really was not completely under control. And anytime I got a cold or anything like that, it just all flared up. And I had to use an inhaler often, a rescue inhaler plus a daily one. And I noticed, I just didn't need to use my inhaler anymore. And I went through this entire, spring allergy season. I used to use Flonase every day. The max dose instead of one spray to 2 sprays. And, I would also take any one of the generic oral allergy pills, Lortidane or Claritin or stuff like that. Plus, use my asthma medication. And that sort of, kept everything sort of under control. I mean, not fully, but sort of. And so this allergy season, without the dairy, I mean, it's really been amazing. And then I remember after maybe 2 or 3 weeks, my mom bought some of those Wisps, those cheese cracker things. And, I had half of that, one serving. And that night I woke up in the middle of the night and I needed to go get my inhaler. And then every time I ate cheese, I would notice like within a few hours, I would have to use my inhaler. So for a little while, I decided to keep practicing it because I bought some halloumi cheese, which is like my favorite. And I had a package of it, so I was like, I'm going to throw this away. And, I have the inhaler, so I'll just use it. But, after a couple of days, it was like, oh, I'm dying. So, I really could see a dramatic difference, in terms of all of the inflammatory stuff. So I don't know,
it's hard when, I think that the point though is that, dairy is so addictive, and that we want it so bad, but to our own detriment, that we would want it, but then we know that we're gonna either, I don't get as much of, maybe I do get some congestion, but not severe or anything. And I don't have asthma or anything, but I just notice an overall just kind of swelling up when I eat a lot of dairy. And I make ghee now. And I noticed also what you were saying, like when I don't eat, like for a while, I was eating a lot of cheese, like over Christmas and stuff, because there was just a lot of parties, and you're already down to like two or three foods. And so I just couldn't. But then after Christmas was over, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I want to just I just don't want to go back to feeling good. And then of course, immediately I started feeling less bloated and more slim and stuff. So, it doesn't seem to affect me with my Hashimoto's, but it's still, I know that it just makes me feel generally unwell, So that's a great for people who have I know a lot of people in my family have a lot of allergies, and they're constantly complaining, and I'm just always thinking like gut-brain connection, and like, but you can't beat them over the head with it,
Yeah.
They're gonna do it or don't do it, but
well, I've always known that I had a problem with lactose. So even as a kid, I didn't like milk. I stopped drinking that when I was about 8. And my stomach would get upset if I had, more than just like a tiny bit of ice cream or cheese. So I always knew that was a problem. And then I found actually when I went keto that I could tolerate a lot more cheese than I could before. So I think that, with keto, I certainly had some, gut healing, but I couldn't eat a ton of it. But I had no idea until I really, really cut it out, how even just a small portion, a half an ounce actually had a significant impact on me. So I don't know.
And have you experimented with like raw milk or different types of milks or cheeses? Like, has it made any difference?
I've seen raw cheese for sale here. I live in New York, so and I have certainly eaten it in the past, but I haven't experimented with that now. And I actually really don't like milk and find it kind of gross. So I've never felt the need to replace that as a substance. So I never drank any other kind of substitute milk either. So no, I have no plans to try to incorporate that. But I have been making ghee. And I don't know, I assume that ghee is, probably for most people who are not super sensitive, it's okay. I don't know if it's really okay for me. I'm eating it and I'm still seeing improvements. But I think that I should probably at some point try to do, 2 or 3 weeks with just using tallow and not using any ghee. So we'll see.
Well, I've definitely cut back on, adding a lot of fat and stuff. Not that, just that I just don't really feel like I need to add a lot of fat to my food. But at first I was adding more fat to my food. And so, but I do make ghee like coffees, but I try to just do 1 tablespoon because I don't want to get like out of control with just eating lots of, extra butter just for no reason, but I love that kind of bulletproof coffee type thing.
Well, the thing is, it's an interesting question, and I've definitely experimented a lot over the last year with how much fat I'm having. So I've tried like that PKD, the paleo ketogenic diet approach, where you're having two to one fat to protein. I've tried protein sparing modified fasts, and I've tried, you know, a bunch of things in between. Actually, the protein sparing modified fast, I did that for a couple of weeks. I didn't really lose weight, and I found myself becoming more and more depressed. And I didn't make the connection in my mind. I just, you know, was just in a very dark mood. And then one day I happened to get some short ribs, and I made them in the Instapot. And so they were ready like within an hour, and I ate them. And like within 15 minutes, it was like the skies had opened and angels were singing, and I was in a good mood. And I was like, huh, I guess fat's pretty important. So after that, I you know, decided not to do that really restrictive on the low end of fat. But yeah, I think everybody's got to figure out, you know, what that.
I tried that before. It's called Weight Watchers. That's a protein sparing modified fast. There's fat free. So what is a typical day of eating for you?
Well, I definitely have beef almost all the time. And it wasn't really a decision, you know, for me to say, okay, I'm only going to have beef. I think that's the most healthy. But I generally try to follow my tastes. And anytime I open the refrigerator and I'm hungry, you know, the most appealing thing to me is always going to be beef. I even, you know, I have a dozen eggs in the refrigerator, but, you know, it's rarely appealing to me that I want to eat that. So mostly I go through periods of having more steaks. I certainly like a ribeye and a New York strip, but I'm limited by the sales and so on, because I don't want to spend quite that much money on it. I do have a lot of ground beef, and short ribs are another favorite of mine. So yeah, that's usually what's on the menu. I have my Instagram channel, and over the last year, well, I guess more like 6 months, I really have tried to take pictures every day of all of my meals, so that, you know, I can sort of get a sense of what I'm eating, and also share with other people who might have questions about this lifestyle. You know, what do you eat? Because in the beginning, I too was like, what do I eat? What is breakfast? Now breakfast is dinner, you know, it's the same meal. And I'm always excited by it. You know, I don't feel you know, restricted by having, you know, beef and bacon. And now I've started roasting marrow bones, which is unbelievably delicious. And I can't believe I've spent all my life not knowing about this. So there are lots of really delicious things. But today I had ground beef with a little ghee and salt on top.
Yeah, I mean, so how much do you have to eat to feel satisfied?
In this last effort with removing dairy, I decided to also really try to just eat to appetite. And so I would say I generally eat between 1.5 to 2 pounds of meat a day. And I measure that raw, and then, you know, whatever it is cooked, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I eat about 2 pounds, I'd say. And yesterday it was weird because I noticed I ate more like processed meats, and it made me like really snacky like all day. And I was like, this is weird. Like it just had it was sugar-free jerky. And then I had some like bacon it was beef bacon, but I don't know. Then the rest of the day I was like, I want more of that stuff, you know? But normally if I just eat my 1 pound of meat in the morning, 1 pound at night, then I'm like fine, you know? But so that was weird. So do you eat liver and organ meats? Do you find that's important, or?
Well, particularly for me, because I still struggle with anemia, I do think that I should be incorporating more liver, but you know, the taste and texture is a challenge for me. So lately I have been pureeing it and mixing it with ground beef, and you know, I make the meatballs. And this morning I did meal prep, and I put together a bunch of hamburger patties mixed with some liver. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah, well, try.
I find I can eat chicken liver if I just like saute it in some butter or ghee and then, but just like lightly, not overcook it. And then, and that doesn't bother me. I can't really get into beef liver. It's okay if you grill it. Like my husband is from another country and he marinates it and grills it, and that's pretty good, but I'm not going to do that like on my own unless he's eating it with me, you know. Um, so that's another you can marinate it like in vinegar and stuff, and it's pretty good on the grill. Vinegar and like cumin and paprika. So do you use spices much, or do you try not to, or does it affect you?
I go on and off with using some spices, but I found my taste buds actually really change. So a lot of stuff that I used to love is just too strong and kind of bitter. Like I used to love garlic, and the first time I used it after taking sort of a break from spices and just eating beef, I was just like, ugh. And I really can't handle it anymore. It's just really strong and bitter. I did find a recipe that used cinnamon in ground beef or on beef in general. And at first I thought, oh, that's gross, but I tried it and I was like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
So it does something to bring out the beefiness. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but mostly it's salt and little pepper and occasionally hot sauce, like
Oh,
in
yeah.
buffalo wings.
Now, do you like chicken or do you even eat it anymore?
I never choose it. So if it's available to me, I would have it, but it's not my first choice.
Yeah, definitely not gonna make it, but if you shove it in my face, maybe, or there's nothing else.
Well,
Um,
my mom still gets upset with all the beef that I eat. So I do, we'll eat chicken or salmon when I'm around her, or, try to make some other meat.
because she thinks red meat's bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finally dragged her onto keto finally this year after years, but it's been a long and tough battle.
Yeah, I got my stepmom and my mom to go kind of gluten-free, paleo-ish. But my stepmom will not, she won't really give up the carbs and it's I'm like, was like, you're so close. Just come on, one more thing.
Yeah, I
But
really understand that struggle. It's very hard, and I see that sugar and carbs can definitely be addictive, and so it's hard. I
yeah, I mean, they they definitely benefited, especially like, their joints and, mobility from giving up gluten and the bad oils and that kind of thing. So, I mean, and when you're older, it's harder to change, So, now, did you notice any changes in your digestion?
Yeah, a lot. I think that I just have always been pretty sensitive to vegetables. So even when I was on keto, back when kale first started being this super vegetable, I would eat it and I would eat it raw and I would do all of this stuff with it, and it always upset my stomach. And I finally got to the point where I said, I don't care how healthy this is. I can't live like this. So
Yeah.
over the years, I've systematically cut out a lot of vegetables because they were already bothering me. And before I went carnivore, it was kind of like, oh, I'm eating so few vegetables, it can't possibly, matter. And then when I finally did cut them all out, it was like, oh, this does matter, yeah. So I do feel a lot better, no bloating, no discomfort. I never, have to be rushing for a bathroom. I never feel any of that. And I feel great and I love it. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh my God, how do you go to the bathroom? All of that. And I'm like, everything is fine. And this is way better than, how things were before.
Yeah, I mean,
When I was in college, when I was in college back in the early 90s, people were starting to become vegan and vegetarian. And so I had tried for a long time to do that. And I just, like, beans were horrible for me. So I've tried a long time to make vegetables work and they really don't.
Well, that's the same thing for me. I mean, I always ate so many vegetables on keto and paleo, and they were just wrecking me. But I didn't realize because I was more on the constipated side, and so I was just bloated and constipated all the time. But I thought, oh, that's just normal. Or, well, I knew it wasn't normal, but I just thought, well, I didn't know that it was being caused by the broccoli or the cauliflower or the salad or whatever. Because that's what that's the base of your diet. That has to be in there. Um, so what about sleep? Have you noticed any changes in your sleep?
Well, I've always been a pretty good sleeper, so that really hasn't changed that much. But I will say, last year I quit. I quit drinking any alcohol, and I also at the same time stopped drinking coffee. And I've been a coffee drinker for many, many years. So the first 6 weeks, I felt like I was just constantly walking around in a daze. And I think my body really had a lot of recovery. I was like catching up on sleep debt and sort of fixing what all of these years of tons of caffeine really had done to me. So yeah, I feel like I got a lot better sleep, and I became more rested. I think my brain probably changed a lot from removing some of these stimulants, and helping me to recover from many of the substances that we have. I also used to vape nicotine. I used to smoke cigarettes, and then I switched to vaping, and then I finally quit that as well. But all of these substances are always stimulating your brain and making things happen artificially. So I had a lot of healing to do, and I think keto was really instrumental in that too, because you're focusing on eating more protein foods, and well, the neurotransmitters are made of protein. So as long as you're providing enough, your brain is able to use these materials to create the neurotransmitters you need to regulate your mood and all of that kind of stuff. So I was actually really happy that I had quit drinking coffee, and I feel like it made a very positive impact. However, I really like coffee, and I really missed the taste of it, and I kind of missed. I feel like on Carnivore, there's so many things you don't have, and so this was just like one more thing. Like if someone said, "Hey, let's go out and have a cup of coffee to catch up," and I'm like, "Oh, I can't drink tea, can't drink coffee. I can sit there and sip water." So I did go back to drinking coffee, and
Right.
so now I don't feel quite so out of place. But I notice a slight decline in overall well-being, but not enough to really be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I drink decaf ever since I had my big health crash. I just switched to decaf because I just noticed that if I drank regular coffee, I would become so addicted within 24 hours, like that if I didn't drink it the next day, I would get super sick. And I just felt like it was too dependent on it. And it also made me have this huge energy crash too every day that I would drink it. So I just cut that out back, a long time ago. So I do drink decaf, but mainly because of that, what you said, the social reason. I have to have that getting together with people and that kind of thing. But if I don't have it every day, it doesn't matter, either way, because I'm not addicted to anything. So, I mean, that works for me.
Well,
But
maybe I'll try doing that and at least get off the caffeine, even if
some places, I mean, New York, they have everything. So some places are way better than others. I mean, of course, the Starbucks decaf is probably the only one that's consistently not sucky, So it's actually tastes coffee. I'm sure it has lots of chemicals or whatever, but a lot of restaurants and stuff, it's really bad.
yeah.
I mean, the social aspect, I mean, I don't know if you follow Chris Kresser, but he always says the most important determining factor of long-term health is social connection. So, I mean, you can't discount that for, just at the sake of being healthy. Like, it is a part of health. So,
well,
all
I
right.
had to address that when I was in the process of losing weight. When you're losing 80 pounds, you have to be very strict about what you're eating. And it took me about a year and a half. So I kind of had to figure out how I was going to continue to go out and engage with friends and go to parties without eating. So I had already spent quite a long time dealing with that. Now, as I've gone to being carnivore, it is a little harder in that, my needs are very restrictive. And most places when you go out and you order an entree, the burger's pretty small. It's not the volume of meat that I need. And everything I would order, I cook better myself at home. So it's kind of like, oh man, I got to spend $60 on a steak that's like not even very well, prepared.
Yeah, when it's like really small, like 8 ounces or something. You're like, can I have some? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes what I do just is like eat a little bit, enough to get me home, and then eat more when I get home, because it's just too expensive to like, well, I need 2 steaks. Well, that's not going to work, So, and yeah. So what do you do? But you still go out with people, right? I mean, you don't just not eat. I mean, have you found solutions? Like, have you found any go-to restaurants or things that you can kind of say, well, I'll meet you there, and because I know this one works for me,
I'm usually good with just about any restaurant. I mean, a Chinese doesn't work, and Italian, unless it's very fancy Italian, tends not to work because most things are, fried or pasta and pizza based. But as long as I can get an entree of some kind of meat, then, it's more or less okay. It's just generally it's not enough food. So, I try to eat before, or like you said, wait till I get home. Mostly my go-to would be a hamburger with no bun, with no cheese and some bacon, and or I would get a steak, depending on the price. Now my birthday is coming up next month, so I'm going to Fogo de Chao with a bunch of friends. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's great. My husband took me there last week for our anniversary, so I was excited for that. And it was a few days early, but I was like, "It's close enough. Let's just go. Let's just go." And that was great because you can just eat everything, and they even had the beef ribs. Oh my gosh! But we don't have Fogo de Chao. We have Texas de Brazil or something. So it's really good. We have 2 different ones here. One place has chicken hearts. So, but the parking is terrible. So you have to give up the chicken hearts for the better parking at the other one. So, so what about traveling? What do you do about traveling, or on road trips or flying? And what do you do then?
So I've found traveling a little bit difficult. It's when I get out of my routine, it makes it much harder to kind of resist all the delicious things that are out there. And yeah, I absolutely love eating meat, and beef is, hands down the best. But I still have a sweet tooth. I didn't gain 80 pounds by eating health food, so. It's hard for me to resist the sweets, and I'm certainly better at it now. But I think that's often really the problem that I have. And so I went to visit my cousin in North Carolina. I have a ton of family down south, and my boyfriend also lives in North Carolina. So I travel a lot, actually. And my cousin and lots of other people I know are just total sweets fanatics. So I'm always having to sort of be around it and kind of resist it. So every now and then I succumb, and then I feel awful, and it's like, oh yeah, that's why I do this. But again, mostly I try to order from. I try to go to restaurants where I can get a burger or some kind of entree that's meat. I find it difficult going to fast food restaurants. I don't know. Maybe I find all of the ones where they're like, what? You just want a patty for 10 cents? What? Yeah, so I always have trouble with that. But when I travel,
It's not cheap. It's definitely not cheap. I mean, I ordered the other day, well, even at McDonald's, I got 3 of those little egg rounds, and I got an iced tea, and it was $7. And I just thought that's kind of ridiculous. And then, yeah, they tend to charge about $2 for a burger patty. And even I went to Steak and Shake one day and got some burger patties.
Mm-hmm.
But they were actually very tasty. They were much more juicy than than like McDonald's or something, which I had McDonald's once, but again, it was like way overpriced. I mean, and it's bad anyway. So you're like, what? I'm paying like $8 or $9 for this. I mean, I could buy a pound of grass-fed beef for that, but it's not very often that you usually just have to talk to them a little bit and be like, or even sometimes I'll go in so I can like explain it or something, to try to get, and I hate when they give you like 12 packages of like plastic and you're like, no, I don't want 17 things to throw away. Just put it all in one container,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely not my favorite to order through the drive-through. And have you found any tips for like planes, or do you just fast, or?
Yeah, I just don't eat on the plane. I don't fly long enough that, food is even really an option. And so, no, I don't eat on the planes.
And in the car, do you do much traveling in the car, or not really?
I do. I try. I mean, I've always tried to fast, and I just don't seem to do very well with it. But I try to eat maybe twice a day or 3 times a day. I've tried to do the 1 meal a day so that I don't have to like deal with the food, but I just can't seem to do it. So yeah, I have to deal with it a couple of times a day. But driving, at least, I can bring some leftovers with me. I do try to bring, I like biltong. That's actually really tasty. So I've brought packages of that, and that helps. And, I also wanted to get the carnivore bar. I missed the opportunity to order any. So when they were taking orders, so I hope that I, can do that in the future, but yeah.
That sounds good. I mean, I heard about it, but I didn't get to try it yet either. So hopefully that'll come out soon and we can all get some. And
the good things about it from the initial reports. So
okay, good. I mean, I hate cold ground beef. That's freaking gross. I mean, I have to let it. Sometimes I'll just, right before I'm gonna eat it, I just put it up in the dashboard and let it like heat up, like in the car, and then it's like comes to. I've done that with steak too. Cut it, like grilled it the night before, and then cut it up small, and then put it up like in the sun before, just for like a few minutes, so it's not all cold, and that works pretty good. But if you're freaking out about like bacteria or something, so do you try to worry about the quality of your meat, or are you just kind of like whatever, or?
Yeah, I used to, and then I was just like, if I'm going to be doing this for the next 40, maybe 50 years, I have so many opportunities to eat good quality meat that, I try not to worry about it too much on each individual occasion that I'm eating. So right now I just buy supermarket meat and it's fine. I think beef, it's pretty hardy. Like it can go a while in the refrigerator before going bad in comparison to, chicken or fish. So, and I think that my stomach is pretty hardy, so I don't worry about it too much. But I'm not eating raw. I thought about it, but I just, yeah, raw meat doesn't really appeal to me. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have noticed I can eat a little more rare than I used to, but not all the way,
Yeah.
raw or anything like that. I can eat it.
Like fat cooked very crispy, and so that's always a problem if you want to get the rare steak but the crispy fat. I've taken to just cutting the fat off and cooking it longer and then cooking the steak. That's been my solution.
Oh yeah, that works. And then it's hard to get the fat really rendered in a big ribeye or something. Sometimes I just turn it to the side and just kind of cook it a little bit on that side with tongs or something. Or yeah, like you said, I'll eat the steak and then put the fat back in. I have an air fryer too, so I'll put that back in the air fryer and heat it up again after. But yeah, I hate it when it's cold fat. Well, is there anything else you want to share with people listening that might help them get started on carnivore? Or, I mean, do you think it's like really for everyone, or do you think that it's like just happens to help you and me, or do you think everyone should try it or do it long term, or what do you think?
Well, I think people should do what they're able to do. I've definitely seen people that I think would benefit greatly by doing it, but they're just not interested. So it's like, whatever you can do, as close as you can get to keto, I think that can resolve a lot of problems. I'm a big fan of, wherever you are, like getting closer to that is the way to go. I don't try to push people too much. People have to come to it when they're ready. And in fact, a friend of mine who has been working for a long time to lose weight, she told me that she was going to go vegan, and I said, okay, well, when that's over, come to me and I'll talk to you about what I did to lose weight. So eventually the vegan thing fell apart, but she came back, and then through our conversations, that's how we created the Black Keto podcast. So together we decided to bring this experience to other people in our community, and and kind of focus on, like, there are massive health issues in the Black community with diabetes and heart disease and stroke, and the keto diet, it can be an incredible tool to address these things. And so we wanted to make sure that we got it out there, and we talked about it, and sort of made it easy and fun, and something that can be flavorful and enjoyable. So that's what we've done, and we have a couple of podcasts out there. So if anybody wants to listen to that would be cool.
Oh wow, that's really great. I mean, yeah, I think that any way we can personalize our message, it really helps. I mean, I like to talk more to women, because I feel like women are the ones that are marketed towards all the health foods and all the vegan foods, and but we're the ones who are trying to have babies, and it messes up our health. Like, you're impacting the next generation when you start messing with your own health. So yeah, any way that we can relate to our own communities and is really good. So that's awesome. Well, make sure and tell everyone where they can find all your work and connect with you on Instagram and everything.
Well, actually, I'm really gotten into creating a lot of different media. So I have another podcast of my own. It's called the Keto Weekly Roundup. And there I just cover all the current affairs, latest news, latest science on around the keto diet, as well as carnivore. And I'm also looking at fasting as well. And you can find that on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I guess. And it's the Keto Weekly Roundup. And then there's the Black Keto podcast, and that is also on iTunes as well as on YouTube. You can find it there. And on Instagram, I'm Black Carnivore.
That's awesome. Well, it's so great to talk to you, Ede. It's been really nice getting to know you. We have a lot in common, and we'll talk to you soon on Instagram. Thanks so much.
All right.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.